There is a cult whose website you can still visit right now. A group whose members shaved their heads, confessed their darkest secrets online, believed humanity was enslaved by interdimensional reptilian beings, and revered a certain politician from the Second World War, all while running pyramid schemes and multi-level marketing scams under the guise of spiritual enlightenment. Today, we're looking at the internet footprint of Desteni, a group whose bizarre New Age beliefs, fixation on self-forgiveness, and cult-like structure would eventually spiral into serious allegations of abuse and financial exploitation. But it doesn't end there. This video will also cover TechnoTutor, an educational software that grew out of Desteni and went on to find surprising success. Along the way, it's racked up countless victim testimonies, with accusations ranging from being a pyramid scheme to fostering environments that justify physical abuse, particularly against women. I reached out to get a first-hand account from one of the former members of Desteni.
I am the author of the blog and YouTube channel Living Desteni. I was involved in Desteni for about 10 years.
This story has it all. Interdimensional aliens, racism, Donald Trump Jr., and is one of the weirdest rabbit holes I've ever gone down. And somehow, almost no one's covered it, not in full, and not like this. To understand how we got here, we need to rewind back to 2007 and explore the social and political chaos that helped give birth to Desteni. – 2007 marked the beginning of the worst worldwide economic recession since the Great Depression. The reasons for the crisis were multifaceted and complex, but most people agree the main cause was proprietary trading mixed with predatory mortgage loans targeting low-income families. The recession worsened in 2008 with the collapse of Lehman Brothers, one of the largest banks in America. This recession changed the political landscape, and every politics junkie believed they were a financial expert, dropping words like credit swaps and credit risk and subprime mortgage-backed securities. Movements like Occupy Wall Street flourished, reflecting people's anger towards the top 1%, who were seen as gambling at the expense of everyday Americans, and then forwarding the risk onto the taxpayer through bailouts. On the other hand, figures like Ron Paul and the Tea Party movement believed that the government was the problem and called for radical reforms, such as ending the Federal Reserve banking system. Groups like Anonymous also gained notoriety during this time. Some of its members organized various, quote, operations, with some being arrested for cyber attacks against government websites. However, if you were around back then, you'd also remember many high school script kiddies LARPing as online hacktivists, saying things about how money is bad and corporations are too powerful, with no clear demands or policy suggestions. In general, it was a time of frustration with the global financial system. This was the vibe. Today, social issues like race relations and gender issues dominate politics, but back in the late 2000s, everyone was talking about big finance. This period also provided fertile ground for conspiracy theories.
Investigate 9/11. 9/11 was perpetrated by people within our own government.
The Zeitgeist documentaries went viral, a series of films created by Peter Joseph alleging that 9/11 was an inside job and that the financial elites were involved in a conspiracy to microchip and depopulate the planet under a one-world government. These films spawned a movement of the same name that was later deemed by many to be a cult. The Zeitgeist movement also advocated for a post-scarcity society where money was eliminated and labor was performed by computers. A similar movement, the Venus Project, gained new popularity at the time too, also advocating for a post-scarcity, centrally planned society. Moreover, these groups also often mixed in New Age spirituality. The New Age movement has existed for some time now and is primarily a phenomenon of the United States. Despite often claiming to have its roots in ancient traditions such as Gnosticism or Eastern spirituality, New Ageism mainly rose to prominence in the 1970s. However, in recent decades, many New Age groups have begun to adopt conspiracy theories as a part of their worldview. This phenomenon is sometimes referred to as conspirituality. There are many academic articles and research documenting this issue and how the New Age movement of today is very different to that of the 70s and 80s. Charlotte Ward, in her article The Emergence of Conspirituality, published in the Journal of Contemporary Religion, defines a conspiritual worldview as having two facets. One, a secret group covertly controls or is trying to control the political and social order, and two, humanity is undergoing a paradigm shift in consciousness. Proponents believe that the best strategy for dealing with the threat of a totalitarian New World Order is to act in accordance with an awakened new paradigm worldview. Perhaps the most infamous conspiracy theorist, David Icke, is known for mixing his beliefs about the world being ruled by reptilian shapeshifting aliens with New Age views regarding vibrations, connectedness, reincarnation, and spiritual awakening.
I accept reincarnation, I get that, but I do not buy for a second the idea that it has to happen so we learn lessons to reach a point of enlightenment.
The Zeitgeist movement, as mentioned earlier, was also in part a New Age movement.
Until we put the divinity of our heart in action, we will live in a self-created prison.
Many experts believe this mix of New Age beliefs and conspiracy theories to have really accelerated in the 2000s. The 2008 recession would have only worsened things with the intense distrust of global finance at the time. Many of these groups, like the Zeitgeist movement, were anti-capitalist and promoted alternative economic systems while being influenced by right-wing figures like Alex Jones. There is research suggesting that economic recessions and increases in economic inequality correlate with a rise in conspiracy theories. You can see parallels between this time and the Great Depression, in which conspiracy theories and beliefs in technocratic alternatives to capitalism were also on the rise. Regardless, this was the political landscape of the 2000s in which this video's story takes place. The group we are looking at today, however, is far more insidious than any of the names mentioned thus far. This group is a textbook example of conspirituality. It was founded on New Age beliefs, David Icke-style ideas about a reptilian elite, and promised an economic alternative to capitalism, all the while running many financial scams and having a bizarre obsession with Hitler. Almost all of this saga was uploaded to YouTube, so let us begin there with the first videos that Desteni would upload to YouTube.
Hi, my name is Kieran, and I was a living, breathing human being until I died in a car accident and discovered myself to still be alive as a dimensional being.
In 2007, a strange YouTube channel called Desteni Productions would upload a video entitled "Car Crash Victim Still Alive After Death." The video would feature a South African woman calling herself Kieran.
I looked around and I saw human beings around me again, and I saw my son James sitting with the beings. And I went, okay, wait a minute, is this a dream? Is this a test? What's going on? Where am I? Where have I been? Or the last thing I remember was dying and finding myself in the dimensions. Thank God there's not a heaven or a hell. I would have most definitely gone to hell.
Kieran would claim to have become an interdimensional being and who had seen the afterlife. She would claim that Christian notions of heaven and hell were all incorrect. Instead, her experience after death involved embarking through an interdimensional portal and making contact with her deceased son. Later, the same channel would upload another video entitled child from heaven communicates after death. The same woman appears, claiming to be a 6-year-old child named Munchin. In this video, the woman on camera is acting much more lively and upbeat than the last one.
Hello, my name is Munchin, and I died when I was 6 years old. 7, around there. I used to work at a factory, and up there in the world, and I died when I walked down a flight of stairs, and I broke my neck.
But just like the last video, she again claims to have died and experienced the afterlife. In this case, she claims to have died after breaking her neck falling down a set of stairs. She again mentions an interdimensional portal.
I was introduced to this interdimensional portal because someone mentioned me dying, and then I was asked to come through this interdimensional portal and communicate.
The channel would continue to upload videos of the same woman claiming to be different people. In many of the videos, the woman claims to be a person who has died and moved on to the afterlife, often referring to herself as an interdimensional being. She will then go on to describe some kind of interdimensional portal, and she heavily emphasizes the word system to talk about both the afterlife and life here on Earth. The person you are seeing in this video is not actually named Kieran or Munchin. They go by Sunette Spies. In the beginning of every video, Sunette will take a deep breath and collapse. The reason why is because each time she is claiming to interview a different interdimensional being through her own body. Sunette claims to be a living interdimensional portal who can speak with these beings. She has many videos in which she does this. In some of the videos, she claims to be famous historical figures such as Nostradamus or Mother Teresa, even Jesus Christ, as well as... oh boy.
Hi there, this is Adolf Hitler.
In this video, Sunette claims to be Adolf Hitler. She also claims that in the afterlife, Hitler now goes by Mikey. Key as in like the key to a door, my key. She states that both of these names are quote valid and have a story or experience behind them.
At the moment I'm also known as Mikey, and that is another story that is to be explained. So from Adolf Hitler on my earth life to Mikey in my dimensional existence to who I am here now, and both names fascinating, has no reference to who I am at this very moment as I'm communicating with you. Yet during my process and during the becoming and the realization of myself, the names have an importance. The names are valid.
In total, she would upload 7 videos in which she quote interviews Adolf Hitler. Keep in mind when Sunette interviews someone, she is pretending to be them on camera. These interviews are very strange and focus on seemingly irrelevant details of Hitler as a historical figure. She talks about Hitler walking through nature as a child, how he lived in a good neighborhood where people left their doors unlocked, like as if she's just reminiscing on the good old days.
I used to enjoy the simplicities of merely walking in nature, walking amongst the trees. Houses were open next to each other, neighbors knew each other.
In none of the videos does she address anything Hitler is actually known for in reality, such as the genocide and atrocities he committed, the people he murdered, his anti-Semitism and prejudices, his rise to political power, the Second World War, or his death. The story she tells could really just be about anyone, but for some reason, it's about Hitler. The climax of this series of interviews, however, results in Hitler supposedly having been able to see and battle demons, as well as having realized many of the spiritual principles as well as the interdimensional reality that Sunette espouses in her videos. At one point, she tells this bizarre story of a demon coming out of Hitler's mother and him confronting it in a weird spiritual battle.
And she just became more angry, and the more angry she became, the more that demon creature inside her stood up. At that time I didn't know they were referred to as demons. I could only refer to them as monsters and creatures, so that's what I will refer to them for now.
Nonetheless, this isn't going to be the last mention of Hitler in this video. Another strange series of videos on the channel concerns 2012 and the Mayan calendar. In the 20th century, there was a growing New Age belief that some apocalyptic or eschatological event would occur in December of 2012. This belief began circulating a lot more in the 2000s as the date drew near. The reason people believed in the 2012 phenomenon was due to the Baktun, a period of time in the Mayan calendar expiring around the 21st of December that year. This was despite most scholars rejecting the idea that Mayan society believed in some kind of eschatological end-of-the-world event that would take place on any specific date. Although today the 2012 phenomenon is remembered as a group of people thinking the world would end, many New Agers at the time also believed that 2012 would be more of a new beginning where many New Age principles would become to be realized on a global scale.
Perhaps that date, there's a great alignment, a great opportunity.
Often New Agers hold beliefs about society reaching some kind of enlightenment in our lifetime, while also the failure of this global enlightenment to come about is what often drives New Agers to conspiracy theories, as it is a way of explaining why their predictions turn out to be false, i.e. a global elite is preventing them from happening. The Desteni Productions channel, nonetheless, would upload a series of videos in 2007 claiming that 2012 would mark the end of time. In this video, Sinet claims to be channeling Ian Zell Lungold, a proponent of the 2012 phenomenon who passed away in 2005.
When that was taken into consideration, the timeline was cut short to 2012. So the end of time is 2012.
This would not be the last failed prediction we will see in this video. So who is Sinet Spies? Why was she uploading these videos? If we look at her YouTube channel, we can see that the description reads, "Here you can find the original Portal interviews, perspectives from existence's process of self-honesty in the quest for universal equality for all life. How to stop creating a reality that is not considering all life equally. Step 1. Stop yourself with self-forgiveness. Step 2. Check yourself with self-honesty. Step 3. Breathe through past patterns till they no longer exist. And Step 4. Find practical common sense ways to coexist that include all life." It's hard to interpret what any of this means. This confusing verbose language will be a theme throughout this video. However, if we look further, there are also several links, including to a website called Desteni.org. Clicking on the link, we are taken to this landing page where the slogan reads "Oneness and Equality." In a nutshell, the website is the landing page for a community and organization called Desteni. This is a group founded by a man named Post-Poolman sometime around 2007. The group believes Poolman to have had all kinds of special knowledge and experiences, including meeting Jesus Christ and teaching demons how to forgive themselves. Oh yeah, as well as forgiving literally Adolf Hitler. You are going to see that this concept of self-forgiveness is going to be one of the cornerstones of the Desteni worldview. Poolman is a shadowy figure, and we are going to get into him later. The main mouthpiece of the group, as stated by Poolman himself, is Susan Spies, who goes online by the name Sinet Spies. Sinet is meant to be a portal that can act as a direct point of communication between all sorts of beings from across space and time, including inanimate objects.
I am a panty liner as the manifested expression of myself within this world, and I'm firstly here to share my experience of...
This is not a joke. She is portaling a tampon. She has also portaled a piece of toilet paper as well as a grain of sand. And this act of portaling appears how it does in her videos. She takes a deep breath and tilts her head back before talking in character with a cheeky little smile as if to say, yeah, you know this is bullshit. The Desteni group mostly operates by following the practices and solutions outlined by Sinet, which in turn have been told to her by Poolman. Sinet speaks on all matters of topics, including ones that require years of study to obtain expert knowledge on, such as medicine and psychology. Destonians, as the followers of Desteni call themselves, look to Sinet for information on mental health, medical and addiction treatment, including for severe disorders such as Down syndrome and schizophrenia. The Desteni group also has a very rigid and strict lifestyle. The group has strong opinions on who they are allowed to have sexual relationships with. They are completely against masturbation. They oppose alcohol but advocate for using MDMA, as well as opposing other religions or worldviews. They also advocate for only sleeping 4 to 6 hours a night. Both men and women in the group shave their heads, and they have many other strange rules and behaviors too. Another one of the cornerstones of Desteni is talk about demons. However, these don't refer to demons in the supernatural sense, but rather demons of the mind. One of the main goals of Desteni then is to exercise your mind of these demons to achieve self-forgiveness. At the same time, Destonians often talk about demons as having agency, so it's difficult to see exactly what they mean and if these demons are just a metaphor for bad thought patterns or if they actually are beings with agency. Either way, they were created by reptilians as a means of enslaving the human race, as I will elaborate on now. If we look further into Sinet's content, she has a series of videos called The History of Mankind. There is also an article series on the website called The History of Desteni, which is very similar. And these entries give us more insight into Desteni's beliefs and why they are so focused on, quote, self-forgiveness.
We were the Anunnaki who required gold to sustain their existence.
Basically, Desteni holds that our minds have been pre-programmed by interdimensional reptilian aliens. This system of enslavement is often referred to by Destonians as the mind consciousness system. In Sinet's videos, she often claims to be portaling one of these aliens, one in particular being the reptilian god named Anu, but the Destonians believe in many other reptilian gods as well. Nonetheless, Desteni believes that these reptilians created human beings as their slaves, and it is for this reason that suffering in the world exists. The means by which these reptilians achieved this is through creating the systems of inequality that run our world. Desteni then claims to offer a very involved means to deprogram yourself from these said systems, namely through the Desteni Tools as highlighted on their website. You can see that Desteni is very interested in equality. This word comes up constantly all over the website, and Destonians constantly talk about it on their posts and blogs. Yet, not once do we ever see a mention of, say, workers' rights, or discussions of existing policies, or class issues, civil rights, racism, or sexism. This is especially concerning seeing that Desteni is based in South Africa, a former apartheid state, so the word equality seems to be used in a very superficial and meaningless sense by the members of Desteni. Throughout this video, you will constantly see the words self-forgiveness, self-honesty, oneness, and equality come up time and time again. We have already seen them come up on Sinet's channel, and you will notice that Destonians almost have their own language and often use words in totally idiosyncratic ways, intending them to mean very different things to how they are used conventionally. There is a Desteni wiki created by Destonians that exemplifies this very well. For example, if you click on the entry for the word belief, it states that a belief is a self-created, learned, or imprinted idea about something that does not correspond with reality. This is when most regular definitions of the word belief go something like this. A belief is an attitude that something is true. However, because Desteni members believe that all beliefs are false, as we have just read, they also claim that they do not have any beliefs. This part of the Desteni worldview is very clearly lifted from Osho Rajneesh, a controversial guru also accused of running a cult, who believed that beliefs were a barrier to truth, and that people were conditioned into having beliefs by society. Sinet has also claimed to portal Osho on her YouTube channel too. All of this is an example of a manipulation tactic known as loading the language. This is a tactic associated with cults by which a group introduces jargon, redefines words, and basically makes it impossible to explain their views in plain English. The reason this tactic is effective is multifold. Firstly, having a specialized and unique vocabulary further isolates members of the group from the world, and communication with those outside the cult becomes more difficult. Secondly, it primes people to be less critical of the cult, as it takes a significantly larger time investment to learn the cult's worldview, which cognitively biases you to be more charitable, both from having invested your own time into the cult's worldview, but also due to being exposed to the cult for longer before you can form criticisms. Thirdly, it also allows members of the cult to dismiss criticism from the outside by stating that outsiders simply are too ignorant or unenlightened to understand the cult's ideas. Another common theme with Desteni is that they are often talking about society in a very negative way. They often say they are, quote, sick of society's bullshit. They emphasize how corrupt and broken the system is. They talk about elites and use the metaphor of the Matrix to talk about the world outside of Desteni. They are also very much against the, quote, rule of money, but then, as we will see later, advocate for their own money system. On the official Desteni wiki, there is an entry called Society. It reads the following: "What is here and what we have become is an atrocity, and we have disempowered ourselves completely. Nothing short of everything stopping will sort this out, and that is unlikely with major motivation like massive continuous calamity, unfortunately. We are doing our best to intervene, but that seems more and more unlikely to be possible. Yet, we may be able to start again with a smaller group and not create the same situation. Unfortunately, we are trapped in this until we sort this ourselves. Even if we start at the amoeba again, lol. There is nothing that can be done for the homeless. They have accepted their demise already. The only beings that may be assisted effectively is children. For that they must not be with parents, thus many illnesses will target parents and many children will need homes and effective support. Be prepared. The animals will be looked after by nature and the animals themselves. Man will not be able to do anything but stop or die. We will get through this. Maybe a big group, maybe not, that we will see. Unfortunately, recent events in the world is pressurizing world leaders towards nuclear conflict as they are losing control of the masses and no solution is effective. No control is effective. This is really not an acceptable scenario, but equal and no one intervention is possible without a workable alternative, and the alternatives have not been embraced by enough to make a difference. Firstly, you can see how bizarre the Desteni wiki is. It isn't written like an encyclopedia, it is more just a blog and series of opinion pieces. One thing I find particularly funny about the wiki is how it constantly says lol randomly in different entries. Secondly, you can see how despite being interested in equality, there is also an apathy for those who are actually disaffected in our world, like the homeless. But thirdly, you can see that Desteni very much promotes dichotomous thinking. The group's members have a deep sense of us versus them, in which society is inherently corrupt and doomed to fail, while the group is the sole source of truth, virtue, and salvation. This is a common cult tactic that deepens group loyalty, not only because of the belief in the cult's righteousness, but also because it makes members scared or unwilling to leave due to feeling like they have nowhere else to go, as everywhere else is fraudulent or corrupt. It also strengthens the cult by promoting groupthink, where the members of the group can dismiss criticism of the cult as coming from the outgroup. For example, you are just saying that because you have been brainwashed by the establishment and haven't been deprogrammed like me. We will examine some case studies of how Destonians responded to criticism later in the video. There are also many similarities between Desteni's beliefs and Scientology. Both Desteni and Scientology hold occult views mixed in with self-help tactics and claim to offer a scientific understanding of the mind. In Scientology, there is this concept of auditing one's engrams. Engrams are said to be negative mental pictures that harm one's spiritual life, and auditing is the process by which they are identified and eliminated. Clearing these engrams then frees one of the negative influence, and the person is said to be in a state called the clear. Desteni holds a similar view, but the engrams are referred to as demons. The Desteni Tools is the auditing process, and one achieves the clear by self-forgiveness and being made equal. We will also see later in the video that Desteni borrows many other tactics and strategies from Scientology as well. So yeah, basically, Destonians are on a mission to deprogram themselves from a form of mind control created by reptilian aliens who are responsible for all the world's problems. Another quintessential part of being a Destonian is constantly making content about Desteni. The group's members are constantly blogging and creating YouTube videos about Desteni and their beliefs. For example, here is one prominent Destonian blogging about their experience with demons. In this blog, they report that their ex-boyfriend had become possessed by a demon and became verbally and even physically abusive towards her. They write, quote, "Sometimes he would become violent, picking me up by the neck, throwing me up against the wall," end quote. They then go on to detail all types of abuse, attributing these, what can only be traumatic experiences, to demons rather than her ex-partner. This is something worth highlighting about Destonians. Many of them are vulnerable people who have found this group as a means of explaining their pain, finding belonging and looking for acceptance. With any cult, this is often true for even higher ranking members. Desteni's members are told to repeat out loud that they forgive themselves, as well as confessing their sins. These statements usually take the form of, "I forgive myself that I have accepted and allowed that," and then whatever they are forgiving themselves for. And for this reason, a lot of blogs and articles written by Desteni members consist of just repeating this mantra of self-forgiveness over and over again. There was also a Desteni forum in which users would post their self-forgiveness statements over and over, sharing their private life on the forum. Moreover, one of the most popular websites for Destonians to post on was Facebook, which is significant because it meant the members, friends, and family could see what they were posting. On the Desteni wiki, the article for self-forgiveness has literally hundreds of lines of self-forgiveness statements. Many of them are about forgiving oneself for judging others or being mean. However, a lot of these self-forgiveness statements are very sexual. Many of them are about forgiving oneself for withholding information about masturbation, phone sex, and prostitution on the Desteni forum. To pick one example, quote, "I forgive myself for accepting that allowing myself to fear talking or writing about fantasy masturbation and phone sex on the forum. I forgive myself for accepting and allowing myself to think the topic of fantasy masturbation and phone sex was too outrageous to write about on this forum. I forgive myself for accepting and allowing myself to fear the contents of my secret mind about fantasy masturbation and phone sex being on this forum because I might get judged by others." The Desteni wiki page for self-forgiveness has compiled hundreds of self-forgiveness statements written by Desteni members on their forums. For instance, "I forgive myself for accepting and allowing the belief that women with curvy bodies and boobs and arse are better than other women and are more beautiful. I forgive myself for accepting and allowing the treatment of boobs, butt, and curves as greater than the existence life force stuff that supports all things, and as greater than other aspects of a woman, i.e. personality, core beliefs. I forgive myself for allowing and accepting the categorization of women according to the desire to fuck them. I use the word fuck instead of some euphemism to depict the grotesque, beastly, deranged nature of this specific point, so I'll never believe this again and live the self-corrective action. I forgive myself for allowing and accepting the separation between me as a male and other females, and I forgive myself for allowing and accepting the justification of this separation, which is I want to fuck them. That's a good enough reason to keep this distinction between me and women. So you can see that many of these self-forgiveness statements are very strangely worded, often referring to strange terminology like, quote, life force stuff, and speaking more like a bad AI rather than a person. Something that has been noted by many critics of Desteni is that many of the self-forgiveness statements would be sexual in nature. One likely reason for this is that people posting their sexual thoughts would naturally attract more attention, and so those self-forgiveness statements would be on the front pages of the forums and the blogs, and so stating them would get more traffic. There is a blog called Leaving Desteni, which is written by a former Desteni member who was in the group for over 10 years. And she stated that she was posting sexualized thoughts on these forums and engaging in explicit conversations about sex when she was still a minor.
Things like sexual addictions, pornography addiction was a big topic. At the time, I was a minor and I didn't know what I was doing, really. But at the time, I was extremely naive about many things about that group. I really thought that the people there were just all good. I had this very naive view of the world that I assumed, oh, just because you're a Desteni member, you're like this good-hearted individual working to make the world a better place. And I just trusted very easily all of these people. And from that kind of trust and the pressure of exposing myself and constantly feeling guilty about my mind and my emotions and the things that I was embarrassed to share publicly, I constantly tried or thought that I had to constantly expose myself daily through the blogs and the forum. I made a post sharing my sexual thoughts and my sexual desires and very explicitly described kind of how I felt in my sexuality at the time as a teenager. And I remember that post was one of the posts that received the more clicks amongst those in the forum at the time. Or when I got just a bit older, I realized that I didn't want to have that online. So I got really uncomfortable. I asked them to remove it. The person who managed the forum said something like, oh, because this post has supported a lot of people, we may, like, I think they did something like removing my name, but at the same time they didn't remove the post itself. But the reality is I was a minor and I had a bunch of, like, I don't know, late 20, 30-year-old, 40-year-old people, men and women, reading my sexual experiences and giving me public responses and engagements and advice on sexuality publicly to a minor.
These self-forgiveness statements require publicly divulging extremely sensitive and personal information about one's life. This is a cult tactic that makes its members more invested in the cult, not only because they have personally opened up to the cult, but because there is the fear of what would happen if they left after having divulged such intimate details about one's life. Because Facebook was a common place for Destonians to post, this would also alienate or ostracize them from friends and family who might see the strange sexual forgiveness statements they are posting, causing them to look to the cult for acceptance and deepen that sense of rejection from the outside world. We will explore some of these blogs throughout the duration of this video as well. Also, something recognizable about Destonians is that they tend to be bold. This is true for both women and men in the group. There is a YouTube channel called Face World Face Off, in which multiple videos have been uploaded of Desteni members shaving their heads, including Sinette Spies herself. The reason they do this is to, quote, experience themselves equally. Again, you can see this abuse of the word equality, Bernard Poolman himself states that Destonians promote shaving their heads so people can focus on their face. Yet in my opinion, when I see members of Desteni, the first thing I notice and focus on is the fact that they are bald. They also state that they shave their heads to show that they are against the quote hair industry. For some reason, Desteni has a big problem with quote big hair, and constantly mentions on the channel how it isn't economical to spend money on hair products. That being said, the act of shaving one's head out of religious devotion is known as tonsure, and it is usually done as an act of humility and a rejection of worldly things. In Destini's case, it is likely a means of rejecting the world outside the cult, as well as making members feel more exposed to the group. And this is a theme of cults, the renunciation of one's private life, having everything about that person exposed to the cult. So before we explore the rest of Desteni, who is behind it all? We have seen Sinet Spires, but she's actually just the mouthpiece, as mentioned before. The founder of Desteni is a man by the name of Bernard Poolman, a figure that we will explore now. Bernard Poolman was a shadowy and enigmatic figure. Sinet has a far larger presence across Destini's many websites and YouTube channels than he does. There are several talks from Poolman that can be found on YouTube, some of which are also sold on the Destini-owned e-commerce websites that we will explore later. In these videos and interviews, Poolman seldom shows his face. Instead, he uses this image that he refers to as the Beast. The few photos of Poolman out there show him to be a husky-looking guy, and we will see later that many people found him to be an intimidating character. Listening to the available audio recordings of Poolman, I believe he is even more difficult to listen to than Sinet. He stumbles across words and uses terms in really idiosyncratic ways. He also sounds like he is trying to play some sort of villainous character when he talks.
And if you do not follow your design, your world fall apart. And then it's also into different levels of functionality. You have those that are fulfilling roles just to create fears, and those that is necessary for the system to function, to never go out of their position, because otherwise they might end up in starvation or in suffering. So the whole system was designed for one purpose only: enslavement.
But nonetheless, he was the one behind it all. Desteni was Poolman's vision. However, what is the story of Bernard Poolman? How did he end up starting Desteni? Poolman was raised in Okahanja, Namibia, where he lived until moving to South Africa to study law at Northwest University. After graduating in 1983, Poolman would join the South African police force. Sometime in the early 90s, while working as a policeman, Poolman claimed he was visited by a spirit, claiming that if he didn't quit his job, he would die that very day. So naturally, Poolman quit his job as a police detective, and the events leading up to Desteni began to unfold. Many people speculate that Poolman's potentially traumatic job as a cop in South Africa could have contributed to his apparent mental state and paranoid beliefs in alien enslavement. Others speculate that his work wasn't satisfying his grandiose sense of self, or in other words, being a police officer didn't fuel his narcissism enough. Whatever the reason was, Poolman would begin to find other ways to make money. In 1995, Poolman's brother was selling a learning software for children that intended to improve reading skills. Poolman would join his brother's business as a salesman. At the same time, Poolman would be working on his first book entitled Virus Free Mind. This book would lay out the foundations of the Desteni process and explain the concept of deprogramming the mind through self-forgiveness, as can be found throughout all the Desteni materials. By the year 2000, Poolman would break from his brother's company and start his own business selling an education software called Power Education. This software would make ambitious claims about being able to improve children's attention spans, including be able to cure ADHD. Essentially, this software would combine the same technology his brother had created, with the concepts found in Poolman's book, Virus-Free Mind. In 2010, Bernard's brother would make a post on the Cult Education Forum clarifying the relationship that Bernard had to his company, saying, quote, "No person at Desteni ever worked on it, and my brother's total input was less than 10 words. The product was stolen by my brother." So in a nutshell, Bernard would repackage his brother's software and sell it for a much higher price. In 2001, Poolman would hire someone named Zena Swainpole as a personal assistant. Swainpole would later do an interview with Vice after many of the events of Desteni had unfolded. She would explain in this interview that Poolman would take already existing software that could be purchased for $30 and then sell it to parents for over $1,000. Swainpole was the main salesperson for these softwares, and she would explain the sales strategy was to basically convince parents that their children's minds needed deprogramming. This technology would actually find success and allow Poolman to hire a team of sales consultants and purchase a property, which would later become the Desteni Farm, as we will discuss later. On the Desteni website, Poolman would explain in his History of Desteni blog series that one time in the early 2000s, he was interviewed by a film crew about his overpriced education software. In the Desteni article, Poolman exclaims that one of the film crew, a 20-year-old man to be exact, would suddenly lash out with extreme anger at Poolman. In this moment, Poolman claims to have taken the man's hand and told him to say, "I forgive myself." Then, like a Hollywood exorcism, the man started convulsing on the ground as if he were having a seizure. Poolman then held the man in his arms and told him, "It's such a good thing to forgive yourself." Then, the man stopped convulsing, and Poolman concluded that the exorcism was successful. What is amazing about this story is that Poolman claims that the first person he successfully exorcised was a member of a film crew that was currently shooting, which would suggest that the whole thing should have been caught on camera. However, Poolman claims that the film crew were so freaked out that they basically destroyed the film so no one could know. Destonians, however, refuse to lose faith and believe in Poolman's exorcism ministry, basically from reading about it on blogs around the internet. Poolman would continue to exorcise demons and make it his life's work. Poolman also claimed to be teaching the same message as Jesus Christ. This is common amongst esoteric and New Age gurus, despite their main discerning views not being found in the Gospels or any other early texts about Jesus' teachings. Poolman is also an atheist and often laments traditional religion. He has even gone as far to literally say that atheism is the true teaching of Jesus. In the History of Desteni articles, Poolman said that Jesus came to him through an interdimensional portal, and the two of them exorcised thousands of demons together through the power of self-forgiveness. Leading up to 2007, Poolman had collected his first few followers, one of them being his aforementioned PA, Zena Swainpole. Swainpole would say to Vice about Poolman, quote, "He had a hold on our minds and our emotions. I was so in love with him and his ideas and his mind that when I became disillusioned with him, it was extremely difficult. He was so good at making us feel like we were becoming deprogrammed from society's bullshit that we didn't realize he was programming us," end quote. However, what was it that disillusioned Swainpole as suggested in this quote? Well, within a few years of meeting Swainpole, Poolman had started dating another woman named Desteni Today, who would become a part of the power technology business. Poolman would slowly lose interest in Swainpole, and eventually she would be phased out of the business and go her separate ways. After Swainpole had left the company, Bernard would begin working on his meditation techniques as later promoted through the Desteni Tools and process. Swainpole would first find out about this through running into DeWitt's parents. That is such a tangential relationship, by the way, running into the parents of the other participant in some weird love triangle. But either way, that is what happened. And referring to DeWitt's parents, Swainpole told Vice, quote, "They were in Cape Town, staying at the Hilton, and I went to go see them. They were telling me about a meditation that Bernard had developed. They wanted me to try it. Then, They say the tool Bernard uses, the way it works best, is E, end quote. Yes, that is E, as in the drug ecstasy. Swainpole claims that DeWett's parents reached out and dropped an ecstasy pill in her hands, telling her to swallow it. Swainpole would tell Vice that Poolman had everyone under his roof on ecstasy. This is especially concerning, seeing that Poolman had 2 children from a previous marriage. According to Swainpole, Poolman was giving the drug to his own children as well. Some time after Swainpole was out of the picture, DeWett and Poolman were having breakfast at a shopping centre in the town of Durban. At this time, Sinette Spies was also working at this establishment as a waitress. Poolman began talking to Sinette. As it so happened, Sinette's mother had recently passed away, and so Sinette was in a very vulnerable state. Because of this, Poolman invited her back to his apartment, to which Sinette said yes. On Destiny's official wiki, Sinette explains the story. She claims, quote, "He placed his hands on my back and said to me, 'Let go and relax.' When he spoke those words, I literally let go over everything and everyone that ever existed within me in the world," end quote. Supposedly, this was when Sinette became the interdimensional portal, and Poolman's drug-fueled meditation circle transformed into Desteni. Poolman would create the Desteni website in 2007 along with the YouTube channel Desteni Productions. Here, Poolman would upload his talks and blogs about interdimensional aliens enslaving human beings through some weird form of mind control, and that it was only he who had the solution. Not only was Desteni a spiritual thing, but it was going to save society too with their new imagined political system. We will explore this aspect of Desteni in detail later in the video. Some of you are probably thinking that Desteni sounds a lot like David Icke if you are familiar with him. And you would be right. Initially, Poolman reached out to Icke to get his endorsement. However, when Icke never got back to him, Poolman didn't take it very well. He claimed that Sinette portaled Icke's higher self and found out that Icke was a double agent actually working for the reptilians. On the Desteni website, there are many articles on reptilian aliens. In one of them, Poolman talks about how he had read David Icke's work and was deeply unsatisfied with it, stating that he failed to properly represent reptilian aliens. The reason being that according to Poolman, reptilians shouldn't be considered as all bad, because nothing can be all bad when you understand self-forgiveness. You can see here that Desteni tries to frame themselves as being the only group able to confront the issues that they are interested in, often claiming that they are the only ones with a plan for world peace. However, when you look at the differences between Desteni and other conspirituality groups or figures, people like David Icke, you will see that the differences are very trivial. One example would be Sinette's portaling, the idea of a new age conspiracy movement that believes itself to channel information from interdimensional or quantum realities, gaining special knowledge from gods or aliens, is very, very cliche. Just to name a few groups that believe this, the Galactic Federation of Light, the Raelian Movement, the Ashtar Command, the Palladian Channeling Movement, the Law of One, the Ramtha School of Enlightenment. I could literally name 100 of these groups. Desteni is obviously not special, but if you asked them, they would say they are different to these groups because Sinette doesn't channel, she portals, and portaling is different. Again, a very trivial distinction, and any critically thinking person should see that it's the same bullshit. But likewise, Desteni has a problem with being labelled as New Age. We will see later that all Destini's spiritual techniques are just your standard self-help techniques you could get from a book at an airport bookstore. Furthermore, these trivial and superficial differences don't just allow the cult to convince its members that it is unique, but it allows the cult to take advantage of members of other extreme groups who feel disillusioned and aren't ready to give up their fringe worldview. Giving up a fringe belief system is hard. There are often strong psychological reasons someone has for believing in conspiracy theories. For example, research has shown that there is a link between conspiracy theories and depression. It is therefore easier for someone questioning their involvement in such groups to find another group that promises to be a better alternative than to abandon their views altogether. As evidence of this, if you read the testimonials of Desteni members, almost all of them were a part of some conspiracy-based movement before joining Desteni. In particular, Desteni used to do a podcast long before podcasts were a common thing called Desteni Radio. This podcast would interview members of the group, and frequently those being interviewed would reveal that they held similar fringe and conspiritualist belief systems before joining Desteni. In the end, Bernard Poolman would die of heart failure in 2013. This wouldn't mark the end of Desteni. The group would evolve over time and is still active to this day. We'll be looking at some of Desteni's other prominent members besides Poolman and Sinet. But for now, let's return to the Desteni website. If we return to the Desteni website, the site's landing page also has 4 links to different articles. One is entitled Desteni's Vision and Goals. If we click on the link, we get taken to a list of, quote, short-term and long-term goals. If we read the short-term goals, we see that one of them is the following, quote, upgrade the facilities at the Desteni farm, where the core team of Destonians live and work, in order to increase the capacity of people that can stay here short and long term. Desteni doesn't just promote a set of values or beliefs, it is also an organized group that encourages its members to relocate to a farm which serves as the group headquarters. We can see many embedded YouTube videos on the Desteni site that link to a YouTube channel called Desteni Farm. If we visit the channel, we can see many vlog-style videos of visitors and residents at the farm talking about their experiences. Many of the videos claim that the farm is a place of self-discovery. One video was called What I Was Looking For. The channel also interviews many visitors to the farm who give positive reviews and talk about how much they learnt and so on. If we go back to the Desteni wiki, there is only one mention of the farm on the site. Interestingly, it states that the farm is an attempt to put their beliefs into practice, especially the idea of green living and, quote, escaping the rule of money. The intention being that the farm will eventually be how all of society is run. However, the entry focuses on how the biggest obstacle of running the farm is dealing with feces. Quote, we are practically testing this on the farm to see what will be effective. Not so easy, so many dependencies that escalate the moment more people are in a group. We need a solution at the design level of reality, for instance, to not need to eat at all or shit at all. Shit, for instance, is a big problem. Every person shit and piss daily, and this must go somewhere to be decomposed, and it infiltrate the soil and even the water resources. At the farm, we are between 15 and 20 people at any one time. That is a lot of shit and piss daily. 10 dogs, 13 cats, horses. There are dedicated shit collectors daily. Lol, the human existence is directed by the shit we produce, end quote. So putting aside the horrible grammar and spelling mistakes, I guess Destonians describe themselves as dedicated shit collectors. For the most part, the farm's online presence mostly consists of advertising, working holidays. The Desteni website talks about the farm as like a center of research or a prototype for a new society, but often the farm advertises itself elsewhere, almost like a holiday location. Furthermore, there are several documented accounts of what living on the farm was like on the blog Leaving Desteni. This is a website where several former Desteni members have given their accounts of what the group was like, including life on the Desteni farm. One account states that they spent 3 months at the farm in 2009. They write that Poolman was very aggressive, even early on. They state, quote, he once gathered everyone in the kitchen, yelling about insufficient donations. He approached me directly, threatening to physically harm me if I ever opposed him. This incident instilled a deep fear that lingered for years, end quote. Another account from an anonymous former Desteni member also comments on this, quote, all was fine until I actually went to the Desteni farm. From day one, I felt something was off. Bernard I found a frightening man. He was very overbearing, speaking loud or yelling a lot, often being in people's faces, as well as saying things that were simply objectively not true, or I didn't think at all, nor experienced inside me. Some had a mental breakdown over it, which he couldn't care less about, it seemed. The guy he did that to was a super sweet guy, came from an abusive background with his dad, and he was called a waste of space, for example, by Bernard. Others were grilled with the most crazy questions for hours, but all of course justified because it was Bernard doing it, so it must have been a good reason, end quote. They continue to write, quote, and he, Bernard, was sometimes extremely hard on some members, almost demonic if you ask me. Some of them shared things with me, and some I witnessed myself, that was just abusive. Like threatening one of them that, quote, if they ever tried anything, he would pick them up and slam them on the floor so all their bones broke, end quote. Then threatening to delete them when alone in the car with them, etc. As if he is God and can decide any of that. He meant like he had access to the dimensions and could just delete people at will if he wanted it. He can't, and he got deleted himself. He is not God and never will be. He can't stop anything about life at will. It was just Gaslight Central over there, end quote. Another former Desteni member wrote the following, quote, Bernard's psychological manipulation was relentless. He threatened me with deletion, not only in the afterlife but also in the physical here and now, claiming he could delete people in real time and had done so with his children. This bizarre and terrifying concept kept many members, including myself, in a constant state of fear. Sinette, under Bernard's influence, would sometimes disappear into different characters for weeks and months, like a childlike character named Lily, adding to the eerie and unsettling atmosphere, end quote. These accounts go on, including Poolman aggressively interrogating a member for hours over if he was willing to commit murder for a great cause. There are also many mentions of Desteni members having mental breakdowns and being met with indifference. There was also a member who had received a large inheritance from a wealthy family member and was pressured intensely by Poolman to give donations. What is also very concerning about life on the farm, according to ex-Desteni members, is the prevalence of drug use. One former Desteni member writes, quote, during my time at the farm, Bernard gave young and impressionable members drugs, including MDMA. Under its influence, I saw Bernard as a demon, a vision that solidified my belief that he was indeed possessed. Bernard and Sinette used fear and manipulation to maintain control, often claiming that demons were the good guys who rebelled against the system, end quote. We have already seen that Poolman has said taking ecstasy is a part of the Desteni process, as he has said elsewhere in many now unlisted videos too. Another interesting detail about Desteni Farm is that many people attest to there being many Scientology books on Poolman's bookshelf. This only adds to the idea that Poolman had lifted much of his practices and the concepts behind Desteni from Scientology. If we navigate to the Desteni material on the website, we see a bunch of drop-downs explaining the quote Desteni process. There are two separate landing pages these drop-downs take you to, one for the light Desteni process, which is free, and the other to the pro page. On a side note, what I find interesting is, from a marketing perspective, the light version of the site is a lot better. I immediately can see that it offers some sort of online life coaching, self-improvement course. I don't even have to read the site to see that, as the images and emphasized words tell us it's an educational course. But on the pro version, it looks like a random blog from the 2000s, and like most of Destini's content, I just have no idea what the fuck I'm looking at. Like, the emphasized text is, "We say stop," for some reason. Like, it's just a horrible website that you're meant to pay for. But moving on, there is a price breakdown for the pro site. The standard package is €200 a month, which gives you access to other features, including the multi-level marketing scheme that we will get into. Paying anything less than €200 just gets you a Skype call a few times a month, depending on how much you pay. These courses claim to practice self-honesty and self-forgiveness and offer a complex explanation of how the self was corrupted by alien consciousness systems or whatnot. For example, they state that through the equality equation 1 + 1 = 2, Destini's members can actualize the principles that the group espouses. So you get to pay hundreds of euros for this fake deep nonsense. However, if you dig through the verbose language, if you penetrate the veneer of occult imagery and talk about aliens, Desteni doesn't really offer much proprietary or unique self-help advice. Most of the techniques offered in the Desteni process are well known, and as I said earlier, can be found in all the self-help books you would find at an airport bookstore. We are talking about basic principles from addiction therapy, mindfulness, basic breathing techniques, and so on. Now, these techniques are widely known because people find them effective. There is nothing wrong with them. However, Desteni claims they are unique ideas that only Desteni can offer, referring to them as the Desteni Tools and demanding their members pay hundreds of euros a month to learn them. This is also a common grifter, cult, or bullshit artist technique. Most gurus take widely available tools or knowledge that can be accessed for free and then mix them in with their own proprietary nonsense. Then the members of the group find success from the conventional knowledge or techniques, but attribute its success to the nonsense, and so in their minds it gives credence to the guru. In this case, the Desteni member might find solace from Self-Help 101, like learning to practice mindfulness or some breathing techniques, and then they see this as evidence that they are being deprogrammed from some sort of reptilian alien mind control. But moving forward, selling these courses was not the primary way Desteni made money through this site. If we look at an archived version of the Pro site, we see a tab that is no longer there today. This tab reads, Income. A pyramid scheme is a business model in which money is made primarily by recruiting new members to sell a product, rather than profiting from the product sales itself. These schemes promise that early members or investors will have extremely high returns, as not only do they get a commission every time their recruits sell a product, they get a commission of the sales of their recruits' also. This creates a chain of commissions that is promised to add up to a large sum of money. Typically, the person joining a pyramid scheme will often have to buy their own product inventory to sell to market, having to then kick up the sales money to those above them in the pyramid while trying to recruit people below them as well, as the recruitment process is the only way they can make money. In a nutshell, the difference between a pyramid scheme and other legal business models is that a pyramid scheme gives returns from recruiting members, not sales. These business models are unsustainable as the math just doesn't work out and gaining new members gets exponentially more difficult. For this reason, it is usually only the person behind the pyramid scheme that makes money, the rest of the members often taking on massive losses through buying inventory for products that don't sell, all the while hoping to find recruits to sign up for a really bad deal. If we navigate through the current day Desteni website, there is a page called Desteni I Process. What is the Desteni I Process? It says on the timeline of Desteni page the following. Quote, Desteni I Process. Due to the ever-growing body of research on the Desteni website, we started developing and making available for the public a course called Structural Resonance Alignment in 2009. The name was eventually changed to Desteni I Process. The Desteni I Process is a structured process where we brought together over 20 years of knowledge and information from many sources, including the portal, that supports people to understand their mind and transform into the living potential they know they can be in this life. End quote. If we click on the before mentioned income tab on the archived site for the Desteni Tools, it says, quote, support others, get monthly commissions, end quote. Let's read further. There is a section entitled, how does this work? Quote, everyone joining Desteni I Process is assigned a recruiter and a buddy. In the first year of the course, this is usually one person standing in both of these roles for a new student. Standing in the role of a recruiter and or a buddy to someone qualifies you to receive a percentage from each course fee your recruit pays. The detailed amounts are below. To be able to recruit and stand in a position of a recruiter or a buddy, you need to sign up as an agent, complete your lesson assignments on time, and pay your course fee on time. The important part is to motivate people and present yourself as an example of definite change through blogging and vlogging on the internet. In this way, you motivate people to join the Desteni I Process and select you as their recruiter, end quote. There is then a breakdown of the fee distribution for the sale of a course. You can see that when someone who is in their first year makes a sale, the buddy and recruiter get a 50% commission. Keep in mind they just told us the buddy and recruiter is likely to be the same person. Now, what is the difference between a buddy and a recruiter? It explains nowhere on this shitty website, but I managed to find a PDF of the process agreement that states that a buddy is an agent's recruiter's recruiter. So, like, someone above you in the pyramid. The next breakdown on the site basically explains how a person making a sale has to kick up not only to their recruiter and buddy, but their recruiter's recruiter and the recruiter's recruiter's recruiter, effectively generating much more returns for the early recruiters and making it far more difficult for the later ones. The buddy system is mentioned on the timeline of Destini's page on the Desteni.org site. Quote, buddy system. It was soon realized that the Desteni process's strengths lie in the one-on-one support formula enabled through the buddy system. Buddies are individuals who have a proficient understanding of the course material and have proven their dedication and passion towards empowerment and life creation over a period of several years. Every Desteni process student has continuous access to their buddy via email and has weekly Skype chats with their buddy in more in-depth support. A buddy's responsibility extends beyond supporting their student and the lesson material and includes life coaching on challenges students are facing in their process at any given time, end quote. In the PDF of the Desteni process agreement, it states that agents signing up have to be buying the course and making payments of at least €200 every month in order to stay in the scheme. This is one of the most damning pieces of information for the Desteni process, as usually pyramid schemes make money for those at the top by making their victims pay for their inferior products themselves, as they usually aren't making money from sales. So very quickly, Desteni began to attract critics claiming that they were running a pyramid scheme. The Desteni process was a business model in which the return on investment was from recruiting other recruiters. The person who is becoming a so-called agent and joining the process has to go into their own pocket and buy the Desteni process, buy their own course, and create their own blogs and the content to attract other potential recruiters. Eventually, this led to Desteni having their original YouTube channel deleted from the platform. All the videos you have seen thus far are either archived or have been re-uploaded on other channels. The Desteni process wasn't the only business venture that Desteni was involved with, and it wasn't the only one criticized for shady business practices either. There are many different fronts that Desteni was or is associated with. Fronts are a common cult practice in which the members of the group set up different businesses and organizations with various degrees of separation to the cult. Some might be open about their association with the group, while others might not disclose their association at all, despite being entirely ran by the cult's members and often being owned by the cult IP-wise. These other organizations essentially function as disguises for the cult and allow the group to enlist and influence people they would otherwise not be able to reach. One of the most infamous examples of this is Scientology. They have dozens of subsidiary organizations that are made to appear completely secular and don't mention the beliefs of Scientology. These other businesses include product marketing services, executive training, health and well-being products, consulting services, real estate. Scientology has dozens of these businesses, and on first glance, an uninformed person would probably have no idea they are looking at the Church of Scientology when browsing these products or services. In the same manner, Desteni has dozens of different websites and groups all acting as fronts. The Leaving Desteni blog has an image with all the labels and groups that are fronts for Desteni. We will be examining some of the most influential ones right now. eQafe is Desteni's e-commerce website, which is one of the primary means by which they make money. On the site's horrible interface, you see it says every question answered for everyone, which is what eQafe stands for. Apparently, this was a much later innovation, and for years no one knew what the site's name meant. When viewing the site today, you see a masonry layout of different clickable cards. All of them have pretty vague stock images that don't really tell you what you are clicking on. But nonetheless, if you click on any of them, it takes you to a grid view of various Desteni products. When you hear the word product, you might be thinking of like a physical book or some kind of self-help item like a yoga mat or whatever, but actually most of these quote products are just MP3 files. While also they are pretty expensive for just an MP3 file, many of them going for around £25. These audio files are just Sinet rambling about space reptilians, and there are actually almost 60 MP3 files you can buy on the site that are specifically about reptilian aliens alone. This isn't like a bundle, you have to pay for them separately. So you would be spending hundreds of pounds on audio of Desteni members rambling about reptilian aliens if you wanted to listen to them all. There are some other products on the site too. For 300 euros, she will draw a picture for you. This picture is meant to symbolize who you are and show you how you can become the best version of yourself.
So I got this from Desteni. They portaled like my beingness, like who I am, mind, body, spirit, in existence. Like this is what it looks like in a painting.
Another curious thing about the eQafe store is that it once had a strange affiliate program. The eQafe store requires an account to purchase anything on the site, and there was once an affiliate program in which you could pick a member of the site to receive a portion of the sales money for whatever eQafe product you bought. This affiliate program claimed that if another member had bought the product in the past, they could receive a small cut of future sales when others bought that product in the future. However, many people would notice that every time they navigated to this page where they could elect to donate some of the sales money to a previous buyer, the same faces would show up time and time again. In 2012, the user xfinxx from the Desteni Cult blog ran an experiment in which they clicked on 30 random products on the site. In this case, there were 17 members who appeared multiple times. 12 of them were hardcore Desteni members that lived on the farm. xfinxx suggests that this affiliate program was actually rigged and only Desteni farm inhabitants could benefit from it. Thus far, Desteni probably sounds like a solely spiritual or religious movement. However, Desteni also had political initiatives as well, claiming that their movement offers the only political solution to achieve harmony and peace on Earth. The most infamous political project from Desteni was called the Equal Money System, which launched in 2008. If you search Equal Money System on the Desteni website, a lot of the entries are the type of verbose rambling we have come to expect from the group, seldom ever actually clarifying any real details about the initiative. For example, the first article that comes up when searching EMS or Equal Money System on the Desteni site is titled, "Human Body is the Equal Money System." The first paragraph writes, quote, "I was putting myself to use and thinking up of how a equal money system would work, and so I said to myself, well, this equal money system can't be too far from me, and I realized it wasn't. My body lives it every day. The human physical body's principle is to consider the survival of every cell, otherwise it would collapse on itself, or in other words, die. Since every organ of the body revolves around serving the cell, in our reality, the human, we simply have to model the organs in the body into reality just the same." End quote. Now, the Equal Money System had a now deleted website that has been archived. On the site, there is one article entitled "Love as Currency," the first paragraph of which reads the following, quote, "As we are presenting this solution, the practical solution to a management system in the world that will equate for the current condition that man is in, where all men are not equal in intelligence and in program design and in education, our proposal being an equal money system and an equal entertainment labor system, using labor entertainment system as motivation and the equal money system as basic equal support for each one as life, so as to end the basic suffering that is existent in the world while we work out a solution. There is a call by many that is rather fascinating. It is a call that one must go on to a resource-based system and your currency must be love." End quote. So again, more psychobabble nonsense that could only sound impressive to certain vulnerable people. However, if we click on the homepage, we get the frequently asked questions page, which is where we get the clearest overview of the equal money system on the whole internet. Basically, the equal money system is an imagined state where everyone is issued the same equal income by an administrative body. They can go out and buy what they like with this income. However, upon spending the money is destroyed. This way, people cannot make more money than what they are issued. They also believe that most people won't have to work, and the only jobs people will do are those deemed necessary for society. Now, who would volunteer to work in this society when work is optional? Well, it's quote, basic common sense that some people would elect to work because they just love working and understand that it is necessary for society. Despite having just explained in somewhat clear detail what the equal money system actually is, the majority of the page is still just platitudes about how greed and selfishness are bad and how the profit motive corrupts people, and just again really simplistic platitudes and the type of banal political analysis you would expect from an 8th grader. The other articles on the site are just illegible, like the one we just saw earlier about love as a currency. Equal money system claims to stand in contrast to both communism and capitalism. The equal money system is different from communism because, well, for one, the equal money system still uses money, but also because Destonians believe that both workers and capitalists are responsible for society's problems, and the reason this is because no one has gone through the Desteni Tools, been pyramid schemed by the Desteni process, bought their eQafe products, exercised self-forgiveness, and post a million blogs about it on the internet. And in addition to being against both communism and capitalism, Destonians are also vocally against free speech and advocate for forced re-education for those who disagree with their views. The Equal Money System website also openly admits to advocating for labor camps, microchipping the population in order to control them, and subjecting those who criticize or cause trouble for the equal money system to, quote, psychological intervention. I'm not exaggerating, this is the exact wording they use. And seeing Destonians and supporters of the equal money system are also against alcohol, masturbation, sex with people who aren't paying Desteni members, religion, and traditional medicine. For all of these reasons, it is easy to conclude that Destini's political ideas align with some bizarre flavor of fascism. On a Desteni blog called Writing to Freedom, owned by a Destonian named Kim Armoret, which directly advertises many Desteni fronts on every page, they have an article entitled 2012 Eugenics is Evil or Best for All. In it, the author argues that love is selfish and evil, and that people with physical or mental disabilities shouldn't be allowed to have children. They go on to say that in the equal money system, people would be investigated to see if they are fit to reproduce. The article writes, quote, in an equal money system, we will investigate and do the proper research to ensure that parenting is about the children and not about the self-interest of the parents. The investigation into eugenics will be from the standpoint of creating the optimal physical and mental design so that every being that is born here into this world will have every chance to develop, explore, and expand themselves into the best possible way. Thus, love will be taken down from its pedestal and revealed for what it is, as nothing but the self-interested nature of the human that wasn't willing to face its ignorance, end quote. Furthermore, Desteni members have also claimed that the Basic Income Earth Network, an organization dedicated to publishing academic research on universal basic income, was a predecessor to the equal money system. However, not only do they have no relation, both in terms of their ideas and as far as having any working relationship with each other, they are also different in that the BIEN actually publishes academic papers and research on their initiatives, communicates with politicians, and actually offers an alternative economic model with specific details. In contrast, the equal money system doesn't offer any real solutions or political initiatives. It was really just a blog website full of empty platitudes and naive, nondescript claims about how it could fix all of society's issues. It never offers an analysis or criticism of any specific policy or political theorist, and in addition, the only tangible or immediate action that equal money system or its followers prescribed entailed navigating to the eQafe store site or the Desteni pyramid scheme and giving them your money. For this reason, equal money system was a front. It was a means of funneling traffic into various for-profit businesses that Desteni was running. In addition to being a horrible political model, Poolman states in his audio files and blogs that equal money system is the means by which heaven will be brought to earth. Specifically, he states that Senet, the portal, has, quote, purified heaven, and now through the equal money system, everyone will become millionaires and live in heaven. I'm not making this up. It is also worth mentioning that despite all of this talk about equality, there is no evidence that the Desteni farm has implemented any practices or means of establishing social equality for anyone. Despite claiming the farm is putting Desteni's ideas into practice, the property seems to mostly be used to sell working holidays and make YouTube videos. Nonetheless, the equal money system would act as the political system of the Destonians for some time. One area where Destonians were particularly active on was Quora. Here you can see Destonians justifying eugenics under the equal money system, claiming that people with undesirable genes shouldn't be reproducing, saying that anyone who disagrees with their beliefs has been brainwashed and indoctrinated, and denying any form of legitimate disagreement, as well as repeating the same empty platitudes about how war is bad and we need to live together. Over time, Quora would also become a large source of criticism against Desteni and the equal money system, which would culminate in the equal money system losing popularity and eventually shutting down completely in 2013. Since then, Desteni has started a new political strategy and started a non-profit called the Equal Life Foundation. The Equal Life Foundation is a supposed non-profit organization that primarily exists as a Facebook page. If we navigate there, you can see that the intro reads, "The Equal Life Foundation's focus is in the arena of basic human rights, with an emphasis on how these rights must be practically applied." However, if we look at the page's posts, some are seemingly innocuous. The page shares a lot of other pages' posts about the environment. Here is one about whales, another about environmental destruction. Other posts, however, are downright strange. Here is one about how the Tooth Fairy and Santa Claus are actually forms of child brainwashing. Here is another one about how belief in God is a violation of human rights. The grammar and punctuation for these images are just horrible. So many letters in caps for no reason. The Equal Life Foundation also claims to accept donations for research purposes, including on topics such as zoology, botany, and anthropology. However, there is no evidence that Desteni has carried out any such research, and not one member of Desteni has showed themselves to have any expertise or qualifications in any of these topics. Sunette Spies runs another channel that uses the branding of the Equal Life Foundation. This channel is not focused on the supernatural or interdimensional topics like the other channels we have seen. Instead, this one is more focused on self-help and practical advice. It still follows a lot of Desteni's values, such as being opposed to masturbation. However, the channel never mentions Desteni or its members. Also, if you look up the legal documents, it also appears that the Equal Life Foundation owns the Desteni recordings about interdimensional portaling. So the two groups are basically one and the same. You will also notice that this YouTube channel drops the esoteric mumbo jumbo and takes on a commercialized self-help tone, using slogans such as less stress, more success. Moreover, the primary initiative of the Equal Life Foundation is the Living Income Guaranteed, which again has its own Facebook page called A Living Income Guaranteed for South Africa. The page has the Equal Life Foundation logo plastered all over it. The Living Income Guaranteed also has its own website. If we click on the Living Income Guaranteed website, we see a Who Are We page which tries to lay out the initiative. One of the paragraphs reads, "The point of living income is paramount to be a solution that is effective and sustainable for all citizens, and therefore the societal structure, which is at the moment the product of the way we function economically, must be adjusted to facilitate such economic solution as living income. Within that, one must investigate all things within the economy to see what requires to be changed to bring about a competitive model which both facilitates those that are not in a position to fully functionally participate in the economy and those that are fully functional in the economy, as well as creating sufficient motivation for the economy to be vibrant and dynamic." End quote. Just for the record, anything that sounds like I am misspeaking, like when I said, quote, "facilitates such economic solution," is actually what is written on the website verbatim. I wasn't making a mistake. But you can see here that there is, again, no substance other than the superficial observation that an economy should also serve the needs of the disaffected and not just the rich and wealthy, something that most people agree with and only really argue over how to best achieve it. Although we did see earlier that Poolman seems to think the homeless are beyond saving, so maybe not all people agree. Basically, the Living Income Guaranteed claims to, quote, perfect capitalism through providing a basic income. They then go on to list a bunch of broad policy ideas that they seem to like. For example, they claim that the minimum wage would be double the living income guaranteed that citizens receive. This is with one exception where they claim that teachers would actually have their pay cut, claiming that they should only make half the minimum wage. And this is funny, seeing that most people believe teachers are underpaid for the strenuous amount of work that they do. However, they claim this is necessary so people don't go into teaching, quote, just for the money. An issue that doesn't exist at all in today's society, so I don't know why it would be an issue under the Living Income Guaranteed. What also doesn't make sense is that this problem would seemingly not be unique to teachers, but any occupation. People could get any job just for the money. I don't know why teachers get the short end of the stick specifically. They also claim that people would have to be deemed eligible for the Living Income Guarantee, and they specify that unemployed people would need to pass a, quote, means test. Sometimes it sounds like Living Income Guaranteed is advocating for democratizing society. At one point they say that society can be democratically planned online using Facebook likes as an analogy for how political participation can be done digitally and not in person. However, Destonians actually see protest and debate as bad things, calling them examples of social dissonance. Just like the equal money system, the Living Income Guaranteed includes digitizing everything, getting rid of cash, introducing a digital ID system, and removing the right to privacy as a means to combat people with different points of view. This antagonism towards the idea of one's private life is present throughout all things Desteni. Just like the equal money system, Destonians online promote the Living Income Guaranteed and emphasize that for political change to truly happen, people need to look within and use the Desteni products such as the Desteni process and eQafe to achieve self-forgiveness and responsibility in order to bring about world peace, effectively using these political initiatives to funnel people into a pyramid scheme, as well as paying for widely available self-help practices that can be learnt on Google for free, as well as audio tapes of bizarre ramblings about reptilian aliens. In a nutshell, the Living Income Guaranteed, just like the equal money system, is a shallow initiative that doesn't engage with any political theory or policies and offers zero practical solutions to any of the broad issues it claims to address. This is because the Living Income Guaranteed is a front for the cult Desteni and a means of funneling traffic to their businesses.
Hi there, this is Adolf Hitler.
As mentioned earlier, Desteni published a series of articles and videos on Adolf Hitler that would receive massive backlash, causing them to delete the articles. On the Desteni wiki, there is a page dedicated to Desteni criticism. This page essentially accuses those who criticize Desteni of being cult members themselves, including the Cult Education Forum, a website that hosted a thread on Desteni that we will discuss later. On this page, there is no attempt to steelman the criticisms of their movement and represent the best arguments against their position. Instead, they insist that all criticisms of Desteni are, quote, emotional reactions. On the page, there is a section asking if Desteni is a neo-Nazi movement and what their relationship is to Adolf Hitler, in which the website states the following, quote, "There are people that misunderstood a series of articles published on the Desteni website where a perspective and an attempt for research into how a person such as Adolf Hitler thinks and perceives his world was made. According to this feedback, we removed these articles and we might republish them later if we're satisfied that we're conveying the research in such a way that it is not misunderstood," end quote. You will notice that they often refer to their articles as research, despite never deferring to the scientific method, publishing any replicable results, or even citing any sources. That being said, what were these articles they are referring to? Well, one isn't so much an article as much as a full-blown book by Post-Poolman, literally entitled I Am Hitler. You could purchase this book on the Desteni website back in 2007, but it was shortly taken down afterwards. Today only a few chapters exist on Internet Archives. This so-called book is a mess. It has paragraphs that are over a page long with no breaks, but nonetheless one chapter that stands out is chapter 9, which is a first-person account of Hitler as a demon. According to the Cult Education Forum and DestinyCult.blogspot, in the now lost video Poolman uploaded to YouTube entitled The Love of Jesus and Hitler Changed the World, Poolman stated, quote, "What was the point of Hitler's actions was he acted in love and out of love. His action was out of love for his people," end quote. The Cult Education Forum also states Poolman had also uploaded a video called, quote, "The Jew in every man is a Zionist." He said, quote, "Hitler had it. He showed, and have a look. Hitler's fight was not with the Jews as persons, but with the, quote, Jewish nature of man as a, quote, Jewish principle. That is not here. Best for man, but it is here, quote, best for greed at a personal level. So we have to take out the, quote, Jewish principle of profit from human nature." The Cult Education Forum also archived a deleted article called Hitler and Forgiveness written by Bernard Poolman. The last paragraph of the article reads, quote, "Hitler is presenting this experience as a help, as a gift. Unwrap yourself, forgive yourself, ask Hitler questions, ask Jesus as God as yourself to guide you, not the God of words and beliefs. Look at creation. Who are you in creation? Do you have any power but in yourself? Abuse will stop. In the years to come, there will be a weeping and a gnashing of teeth. Hear Hitler. He has been here on earth. He has been a demon. He forgave himself. He saw and sees who you really are. We, as all that has understood themselves, walk with you, but you must set yourself free from your own enslavement. Yes, you enslaved yourself. Accept that. By your own power, you enslaved yourself. By your own power, you will set yourself free," end quote. One of the Desteni blogs that is directly linked to the Equal Life Foundation is called Money Matters. It has almost 16k subscribers, and the site seems to be focused on promoting the living income guaranteed. However, the site also has an entry called Day 355, What is the Holocaust up to date? This article is cookie cutter Holocaust denial. This isn't an exaggeration. It claims that the genocide was a fictitious event created by wealthy Jewish elites as a racket to extort Germany and other Gentile nations. The article writes, quote, "How insignificant in human history the Jewish Holocaust really is. It is no wonder then that blowing up the figure of those that died was of paramount importance to guarantee a place in history of any relevance to that particular event, which everyone will concede makes us soft about all Jews, including the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers of this world. It creates the perfect buffer so that when anyone in the world would try to stand up from the money abuse, they can be called anti-Semitic and tried for ethnic discrimination, which is in fact a huge mistake we keep making, idiotic in fact," end quote. If you look at the likes and positive comments on the articles, you can see that they are all followers of Desteni, which can also be confirmed due to many of their profile pictures featuring women with their heads shaved. Around the time of 2011, the cult specialist and founder of the Cult Education Institute, Rick Ross, would begin a thread on his website about Desteni. This thread would consist of hundreds of pages of information about Desteni, including all of their products, fronts, and YouTube videos. Unsurprisingly, Ross would conclude that Desteni was indeed a cult. He would tell Vice in the same article referenced earlier, quote, "In my opinion, based upon the interaction with Desteni members online and through the message board, the group is a destructive cult," end quote. This would anger Destonians to no end, who would begin writing about Ross on their blogs. Daryl Thomas, who was mentioned earlier as one of the more important Destonians in the group, would write a blog trying to expose Ross, in which he would spend a large amount of time on Ross's Jewish ancestry. Thomas would write, quote, "Rick Ross, whose apparent religious intolerance may be informed by his Jewish upbringing, allegedly began his cult-busting career working in his grandmother's nursing home," end quote. Thomas would also accuse Ross of, quote, "Jewish bigotry," and state that the reason he is a cult deprogrammer is because he is paranoid about Jews converting to Christianity. There are many layers of irony when it comes to Daryl Thomas. Firstly, he seems to be the only person of colour that ever shows their face in Desteni. This is a little bit ironic, seeing that Desteni claims to be promoting equalities in South Africa. Secondly, in 2011, historian and YouTuber Sean Munger wrote several blogs about Desteni in which he documented their cult behaviour. Thomas would respond to Munger by writing a blog accusing him of being racist for criticising Desteni. However, he would never really explain how or why Munger was racist, just that it was the only plausible reason for why Munger would take an issue with the cult. What is especially funny is that Thomas would write these two blogs back to back, chronologically speaking. He would write an article in which he discounts one person's criticisms because they are Jewish, and then a few days later write another in which he dismisses someone because they are racist. For this reason, it's hard to tell if Destonians actually hold white supremacist views, or if they are just deeply confused and will say anything as long as they don't have to abandon the cult. Destini's relationship to Hitler and Nazism is confusing. What is known is that Poolman saw Hitler as a shining example for Destonians. However, most of the exact details of Hitler's life that Poolman sought to share with his followers were all fictitious and made up, taking place after Hitler's death in some kind of afterlife. When it comes to the specifics of the Nazi ideology and the crimes of the Third Reich, I have yet to find Poolman or Sinet mention them once. Like I said earlier in the video, it's almost like they could have picked any random historical figure to make up a story about posthumous self-forgiveness in the afterlife. So why did they pick Hitler? Some people speculate that the reason they focus so much on Hitler in the early days of Desteni is because Poolman was influenced by what is called esoteric Hitlerism. This was an occult movement that formed in Nazi Germany, in which Hitler was seen as some kind of spiritual messiah, often as an incarnation of gods and figures from Eastern religions, like an avatar. One of the most infamous esoteric Hitlerists was Savitri Devi, a Nazi sympathizer who committed espionage for the Axis powers in India. Devi believed Hitler to be the ninth avatar of the Hindu god Vishnu. She also believed that the Jews had brought about the Kali Yuga, the darkest age in the Hindu cycle of world ages. And many people speculate that this strain of occultism had influenced Poolman as well. The exact details of Poolman and Destini's relationship with Nazism is confusing, to say the least. My personal opinion is that Poolman made a tone-deaf and irresponsible attempt to show how forgiving he was, as he could forgive one of the most evil men in history. This may have attracted people with darker and more hateful views. After all, anti-Semitism is common in conspiracy circles in general. However, from everyone I have spoken to who has left Desteni, no one can give me definitive examples of Poolman sharing the politics of Hitler with them. I could be wrong, but this is just my guess from my research. Either way, what Poolman has said about these topics is offensive and irresponsible. In 2013, Bernard Poolman died of heart failure. The Destonians would mourn his death on the forums, and this would greatly stunt Destini's online growth, essentially ending the peak of the movement. On the 20th of May 2014, longtime Destonian Victor Persson published an article entitled Day 139, Look at What They Are Doing, discussing how he became emotionally distraught at seeing Desteni fall apart. It began, recently some reactions have come up within me wherein I've experienced irritation, annoyance, as well as fear and anxiety towards the point of seeing the Desteni group fall apart and not anymore walking together. I have, for example, been observing some individuals that in the past were avid spokespersons for Desteni, and the principle of what is best for all slowly fade away. And towards this, I've then had the back chat come up within me. But don't they understand how important this is? Don't they understand that walking in a group is the only thing that will make a difference? This irritation has been accompanied with worry, as well as blame. Blaming those that are not walking anymore as being the cause for the group not moving as I want it to move, and for me becoming worried that everything is going down the drain, end quote. However, this wouldn't stop several Desteni members from continuing the cause. The most significant post-Poolman initiative worth discussing would be that of TechnoTutor. an educational software that would go on to have more influence than Desteni ever did.
Hi, my name is Cameron Cope, and the reason why I'm a Gen member is because I have a lot of goals and dreams that I want to accomplish in my life. And like a lot of people, I'm sure I wasn't born into a privileged family, so I didn't grow up with all of the knowledge and all of the relationships that are necessary to really succeed and fulfill the dreams that I have. So I joined the Global Information Network to be a part of a group that would allow me to succeed in life. And since joining, my life has changed completely. Since joining, I've started my own business. I have distributors around the world. I've been on TV twice, interviewed by Donald Trump Jr. and William Shatner on Fox Business and Bloomberg. I've had amazing relationships.
In 2010, a member of Desteni named Cameron Cope began selling educational software, just like Poolman had done before him. The software he was selling was available for free on Desteni's website, but now Cope was selling it for thousands of dollars. Cope would post under the company name Desteni Education. On the Cult Education forum, Cult would argue with many critics of the software, who were claiming that it was an attempt to recruit parents, teachers, and children into the cult. Cope would respond with the following, quote, "I chose the name Desteni Education because I agree with the principles that Desteni in South Africa stands for, and I like the name. The first name I considered was TechnoTutor, but it was already taken, as was Tutor in a Box. So I went with something that I knew would not cause any infringement issues." Despite the name having been taken, by Poolman's death in 2013, Cope and other members of Desteni would form TechnoTutor LLC. TechnoTutor is a quote vocabulary development software that claims its users can achieve both educational and financial freedom through overcoming negative thought patterns. The company would claim to have nothing to do with Desteni, and Desteni would claim to have no part in any of it. However, a closer look shows that in the years following TechnoTutor's founding, it seemed to be almost exclusively operated and promoted by Desteni members. Desteni DeWitt, Desteni's namesake and Poolman's ex-partner, who was also involved in Poolman's educational software Power Education, would become the UK director of TechnoTutor in 2014, while also Franz DeWitt, Desteni's father, who was also involved in Power Education, would become the director of TechnoTutor South Africa, while also Bernard Poolman's daughter, who at the time after Poolman's death owned the Desteni.org website, also owned technotutor.co.za. Poolman's Power Education would often include the metaphor building a brick wall, referring to the technology's claim to build attention. Cameron Cope has used this same metaphor while promoting TechnoTutor, such as in an interview by the student-operated press. The TechnoTutor software claims that it can, quote, teach users how to learn, and promises its users can achieve all sorts of ambitious goals by learning the vocabulary of a person who has already achieved them. So for example, if someone wants to become a millionaire, they can learn the vocabulary of a millionaire using TechnoTutor and actualize this goal. TechnoTutor has many testimonials that make very wild claims for a vocabulary development software. Just searching TechnoTutor on YouTube, there is a whole playlist of different testimonials in which people make claims such as, "TechnoTutor saved my marriage, TechnoTutor made me the head salesman of a $100 billion company." Many of them are about achieving extreme wealth. I found one Facebook post where a distributor claimed TechnoTutor healed someone's multiple sclerosis. TechnoTutor would go on to have a lot of success. It would appear on the show Moving America Forward with William Shatner.
You are certainly in an interesting business, but take a moment to describe to me exactly what you do and who you do it for and how it helps move America forward.
Mr. Shatner, we're boldly taking education where it's never gone before. With the rapid changes in technology that we see today, the future presents unique challenges and opportunities. Parents want the very best for their children, and they want them to be prepared to succeed.
And one thing I found interesting about this TV appearance is that there is some footage of someone explaining TechnoTutor on a whiteboard, writing the word self-honesty.
And showing a person that they can actually learn anything and integrate anything that they want to learn, from becoming a doctor to a lawyer to a surgeon to whatever it is that they want to do. This is something that will help mankind.
This being one of the most incessantly used phrases in Desteni's lexicon. In the Shatner interview, Cope explains that they discovered a quote, mad scientist when explaining the origins of TechnoTutor.
Where did it come from? What's the story?
Well, it's really interesting. As I said, Katie and I, we were private tutors, and we're the type of people that when we do something, we really want to do the best that we can. So when we looked at our clients and we were trying to figure out how can we help them the most, it's almost like by some kind of fortune or something, we do our research, and we found kind of a mad scientist, if you will, in South Africa who was developing a technology and working with students, and this is in one of the countries that has a very high illiteracy rate. And he was working with both the very poor population and the more wealthy population in South Africa and having amazing results. So
many speculate that this mad scientist was Bernard Poolman, again solidifying the claim that TechnoTutor is an off-branch of Desteni.
Here today to discuss how their company is helping children and adults develop a powerful vocabulary, we have partners, Avery Williams and Cameron Cope, as well as regional distributor Dr. Stephen Lammer from TechnoTutor.
TechnoTutor would also land an interview with Donald Trump Jr. Furthermore, the TechnoTutor software would receive a lot of criticism online. Many of these complaints were the same levied at Power Education, namely that TechnoTutor was selling technology for thousands of dollars that was easily available for free. The website TechnoTutor Exposed lists many free softwares that offer similar services to TechnoTutor, such as Accelerator, Spreeder, Brill Kids, and SwiftRead. On YouTube, there is a 3-part series uploaded by a channel simply called KA, which goes through the entirety of the software. Based on these videos and other people's experience with the site, many criticize TechnoTutor as a quote glorified dictionary. When you Google TechnoTutor, there are so many alleged victims and criticisms of the company, it is really astounding. There are whole Reddit threads with dozens of people saying they lost thousands of dollars to the company, both from people who bought the software as well as people who were offered distributor roles, claiming to have been scammed by a multi-level marketing scheme. Now, what might they mean when they say that? Well, these allegations stem from TechnoTutor selling distributor licenses in which people would pay for sales roles in the company.
I also understand that you offer unique opportunities for people to work with your firm. Explain what that is. How does that?
Well, what it is, we have 3 different licenses that we're offering: regional licenses, an area license, and a local license. They're for people who are really passionate about education, about this world, and about how to make a difference in everyone's life. And we look for people who are really dedicated to education.
There are many Reddit posts in which people allege they paid thousands of dollars for these distributor licenses and never made their money back. However, the Leaving Desteni blog actually shares 6 affidavits from past legal battles with 10 different former distributors, all claiming to have been greatly harmed by TechnoTutor. The first distributor affidavit writes, quote, "I have expended more than $150,000 in pursuing this business based on representations that were not met, which is a complete loss and has left me in debt," end quote. Another affidavit of 2 other former distributors states that they invested $200,000 into TechnoTutor, including money that was used to fund the commercial with Donald Trump. The distributors state in the affidavit that they were promised compensation for this, but they never received it. Almost all the affidavits mention the poor quality of the software as well, claiming it was buggy, had 0 technical support, would constantly freeze, in addition to having spelling mistakes throughout the vocabulary builder.
If the Global Information Network, or GIN, sounded too good to be true,
You could be making more money than you ever thought possible.
that's because it was.
Do you want to get rich?
Infomercial king Kevin Trudeau hatched the idea, promoting the secrets to success.
I'm excited, how about you?
Cope and other members of Desteni are members of the Global Information Network. The Global Information Network is a multi-level marketing scheme started by convicted fraudster Kevin Trudeau, who was recently released from a 10-year prison sentence he received for criminal contempt.
So I joined the Global Information Network to be a part of a group that would allow me to succeed in life. And since joining, my life has changed completely.
The Global Information Network was the means by which they gathered leads and made sales. The Global Information Network also promotes conspiracy theories about a shadowy elite ruling the world, promising to offer the secrets to how this cabal became so rich and powerful, so long as you participate in their schemes. You can see that throughout Desteni history, there has always been this infatuation with MLMs.
TechnoTutor grew largely from being involved in this club, the Global Information Network, but they got kicked out because they were super unethical and people really started to hate them, basically. They were very shameless in their sales techniques and they got kicked out. But what they did is that they copied everything that this club was doing and they just replicated it. And that's why they have these kind of styles of photos and things like that. They replicate almost exactly to the point. It's really shameless.
As the 2010s came to an end, TechnoTutor's leaders would launch a new initiative called Self-Perfected, a self-improvement community that served as a fresh recruitment funnel. Starting as a Facebook group in 2020, Self-Perfected held regular online meetings and personal development seminars, focusing mostly on mindset coaching. This was a way to draw in young entrepreneurs and families and eventually pitch them TechnoTutor. This move came as part of a strategy to expand TechnoTutor's reach without overtly mentioning Desteni or even the product at first. By embedding TechnoTutor into a broader lifestyle career coaching context, the co-founders could engage prospects through podcasts, YouTube videos, and workshops under the Self-Perfected brand, then convert them to TechnoTutor buyers. Critics have likened Self-Perfected to yet another front of the Desteni cult, an attempt to appear like a generic success coaching group while covertly promoting the same MLM software and Desteni philosophies.
You see self-perfected principles of what is best for all. It's all a copy of Desteni principles.
An interesting fact about Self-Perfected is that its logo is a red pill. This is a reference to the Matrix movies and a callback to Poolman's belief that those movies were literally real. The TechnoTutor Exposed website also details some very serious allegations about what went on in these groups. The site alleges that TechnoTutor's co-founders harbored extremely misogynistic beliefs that they would promote to their members, including justifying domestic violence. The site reads the following: There are couples who are matched together by the co-founders. Matchmaking is a common practice in this community. There was a case of domestic violence that a woman experienced, and while they don't explicitly advocate for domestic physical abuse, a co-founder made comments as to why women get abused due to them, quote, provoking the abuse. Despite the instances of domestic violence, the blame for the instability of the relationship would continuously be put on the women for, quote, not using TechnoTutor in order to be emotionally stable. Without knowing the full story, much of the focus was tied back to whether the women were using TechnoTutor to, quote, stabilize their mind, as according to the co-founders, quote, the male in the relationship needs a stable woman in order to be what they called, quote, an effective distributor for TechnoTutor, end quote. The co-founder would try to victimize and justify the man's actions by explaining men's anger as caused by women's confrontation, as if a woman confronting their partner in a relationship constitutes a provocation. Their fundamental belief is that women should be submissive to men, and if the woman is not submitting properly, there are grounds to justify many of the man's reactions, even abusive ones, as it is the women's responsibility for striking the man's nerves.
There was a very disturbing story of domestic violence that was revealed, and which was very eye-opening to me, because there was a couple and they had a child in the farm, and this couple had been recruited into Desteni and kind of directly coached by Bernard, very young, lived at the farm, and they managed a lot of things, like they were, for instance, buddies in the Desteni I Process course. Their public divorce was one of the factors that really made me leave the group and open my eyes. The woman in the relationship just started to make a lot of posts daily for weeks, in which she described very explicit and extremely disturbing descriptions of how she was abused physically and in some ways sexually in the relationship, how there was pornography, physical violence involved in their relationship. And the man in the relationship made a public video on YouTube in which he said that Bernard Poolman had sort of coached him or advised him that one day he would be in a position where he would be taking on two women at the same time. So he would be having two partners at the same time. And this couple as well was connected in some ways to the leaders of TechnoTutor. They supported TechnoTutor. The guy, in fact, in the relationship sometimes gave talks to the distributors of TechnoTutor. Bernard would tell Avery Williams that women sometimes needed to get a sort of physical shock in order to have like their emotions stabilized in a way. It was a very sort of subtle thing. Like he wouldn't say, oh, you have to physically abuse women, but he would say something like, oh, well, Bernard Poolman told me that he would splash water on Destini's face in order to like assist her to stabilize her emotions, for example. I think personally that there are a lot more stories of domestic abuse that we probably never heard of publicly, that people never came out with publicly within that group.
The TechnoTutor exposed website continues to read the following. Quote, one of the co-founders explicitly expressed lust towards a young woman in the group during a supposed, quote, private support call, in which he also made derogatory remarks about another woman's appearance. The co-founders also promote disloyalty behind closed doors, implying that it's natural for men to be sexually attracted and desiring other women besides their girlfriend/wife, and claiming that there's nothing wrong with the man going to the strip club. A member was told by a co-founder that their partner should be allowed to go to the strip club and that when he gets home, have sex with her in order to get a, quote, sexual release, as if applying those sexual fantasies built up while looking at women in the strip club to his partner in the act of sex. The co-founder's wife gives advice about women overcoming their jealousy and promotes the idea that women should work on themselves to tolerate the man's lack of sexual restraint. The other co-founder showed pornographic images to a couple in their home under the implicit intent that he was, quote, coaching them to have better sex. These were explicit images of male-female penetration, and it was revealed that the co-founder was still watching pornography up until recent years. While teaching the men in the community to not engage with pornography in any way, the core problem here is that men are encouraged not to suppress their sexual needs and to look at other women's bodies if they feel the need to, and the women are expected to submit to their partners 110% of the time. Female disloyalty and desire for other men is more likely to be rebuked than men's.
But one of the couples running TechnoTutor, the woman in the relationship also told me a very disturbing story of how Bernard Poolman would challenge her to stop being like jealous or insecure, and in a way force her to have to accept the idea of her partner sleeping with multiple prostitutes. It was a very weird, very disturbing story she was telling me that, according to her, was helpful because it helped her remove a program of jealousy, as she called it. But yeah, Bernard was telling her that she had to become comfortable with the idea of her partner sleeping around with other women, and that she had to mentally come to accept that in order to overcome her jealousy.
Something interesting about TechnoTutor is that its founders are very inspired by right-wing communities online, such as the Manosphere. Avery Williams, one of the co-founders of TechnoTutor, has a public X account. His posts are just a stream of Donald Trump and Elon Musk glazing. He has also shared many videos defending Andrew Tate. Avery is very plugged into the right-wing media complex and seemingly is trying to position himself alongside figures like Andrew Tate, Jordan Peterson, and Candace Owens. It is also worth noting, in case there was any doubt, that to this day, Avery still shares videos from Sunet Spies and Desteni on his X account.
Avery Williams recruited me into TechnoTutor when I was about 19 years old. Very quickly, he introduced me to YouTube videos by people like Stefan Molyneux and Jordan Peterson, and what I now know is called the Manosphere. Avery would regularly talk really low and badly about single mothers, independent career women, and just women in general that don't have children or didn't have children or don't want children. And he would push for this idea that the only source of happiness for a woman is to be in a relationship where they are in a way servicing a man, and being a mother, staying at home, not having a career, not having that financial independence. And I became a quick target, where he took this role of coach and mentor, targeting the fact that my mother was a single mother, and that I didn't grow up with my father or having a father figure at home. And he very much emphasized through our conversations the fact that I was, according to him, at a disadvantage in life because of not having grown with a father figure. And in fact, he suggested and he said that my mother was probably lying, or that I shouldn't trust my mother because my mother had become a single mother because my father was very violent and abusive. And I'm very grateful she left, because otherwise my life would have been in danger. Her life would have been in danger. But Avery William constantly made comments about how you cannot trust single women, single mother, sorry. He made comments to instill some suspicion on my mother, that I shouldn't trust my mother because she may be telling me lies about my father. And he at some point mentioned that there must have been a way or a reason for why my father had become violent, as if my mother had provoked that violence. And just remembering that makes me extremely angry, because I know just how dangerous my father was. And the fact that Avery was, in a way, trying to make my mother seem like the bad guy in that story really speaks a lot about the values that he has as a man and as a human being. But at the time, I was just really taking in everything that he was pushing on me. And I became convinced that, if I followed on all of his advice, that I would get out of the situation of vulnerability that I was in, my poverty and the difficulties that I was experiencing. He said that all of that could be resolved if I really followed upon his advice, and all I just wanted was, a better life. So I followed upon his advice. And I was extremely naive and very much like a sheep, following everything he said. And of course, he really wanted a person like me, what they call a so-called teachable person. And he made comments suggesting that I wasn't going to be happy in my career. At the time, I was studying in law school. I was very young and I was very scared because I have a lot of difficulties given the lack of resources and support that I had in my home. And so he became that source perhaps of support for me. And he even at some point called himself my father. And very much his influence was all about me dropping my career, getting in a relationship with one of the distributors in TechnoTutor, and becoming this sort of trad wife or traditional wife.
Another interesting thing about the rhetoric behind TechnoTutor is their focus on AI. Particularly, TechnoTutor focuses on how the threat of AI will replace jobs, and so you need TechnoTutor to protect your children from an automated future economy.
By 2034, all 9-to-5 jobs are going to be extinct. That's in his own words. You can go look it up. And so when I'm seeing Reid Hoffman, who's a billionaire, saying that, I see Elon Musk talking about this. He's talking about having 3 robots for every human, okay? As a parent who has kids that are young, I'm looking at where's the world going to be by the time they're, 25. Is traditional education going to cut it anymore? Of course not. Of course not. And,
A lot of TechnoTutor's most vocal members promote very conspiratorial views about elite groups controlling society, and that TechnoTutor has special knowledge about them that they aren't allowed to say publicly.
Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, all these different, elite groups, the Morgans, Carnegies, a lot of them pretend that they're all good and they got their foundations and stuff. Look at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. You think they're actually doing good, or is it a tax shelter? Right? There's a lot more to it. I'm not going to go into that here. I'm not even going to say some of these words because this is going to end up on YouTube, right? And you have to be careful about what you say.
In keeping with the life counseling aspect of Self-Perfected, a lot of TechnoTutor members have uploaded videos about the role of women in relationships and in the family. In these videos, they tend to reinforce traditional tropes like men aren't able to multitask. They also use language like referring to mothers as, quote, life engineers, and are basically encouraging women to not pursue careers and take on the full burden of raising children, as well as being the emotional support and, quote, cheerleader for their husband.
My self-given title is a life engineer. It works best when you really have a main caretaker for the kids. And that's a part of being a life engineer for me, is focusing in on the best way to support the kids to be the best that they can be. Because if your starting point in having kids isn't to raise them to be the most effective they can be, then you should question your starting point in having kids. Their third pillar is cheerleader. Now, what does that mean? That sounds degrading. No. It's actually extremely important. He is going to battle all day, every day, right? Like, he is facing the system. He needs somebody ride or die alongside him, letting him know, like, it's okay, we got this, how can I effectively support you?
One of the main reasons why TechnoTutor and Self-Perfected encourage traditional relationships is they believe it is necessary for raising exceptional children, or in other words, engineering geniuses. According to critics of TechnoTutor, this demand of raising exceptionally intelligent children so they can survive in an AI-ruled world is a means of pressuring women into misogynistic relationship styles, as if a woman having their own goals and needs is a threat to the well-being of their children. In the last 10 years, Destini's online presence has dwindled. Putting aside TechnoTutor, there haven't been any major initiatives like the Equal Money System or Destiny I Process. A lot of their old material only exists on archive sites now. The main Destiny website, wiki, and eQafe store are still up and running, but a lot of these sites have been scrubbed of the more incriminating content. Sunet has also stopped uploading content on any of the channels mentioned thus far. The Destiny farm would also apparently move to Panama in 2019 and then never update their Facebook page again. The most active place I have seen Destonians is on their Discord server. Naturally, Discord didn't exist for most of this video's timeline, but today they seem to have an active Discord server with almost 300 members. To get full access to the server, you need to be vetted. You need to have your face and name available on your profile, and they seem very cautious of letting people in. Andrea, the woman who wrote the article about her abusive boyfriend and demon possession, can be seen as recently as 2024, posting about implementing stricter steps to gain access to the server. It is interesting to see all the old cast on Discord now still presumably posting about self-forgiveness and portaling to this day. So there is still some activity from Destiny, but since the passing of Bernard Poolman, the biggest Destiny initiative by far has been TechnoTutor, an organization that has taken on a life of its own. At the end of the day, Destiny is not just some weird internet cult from South Africa, it's a product of its time. It emerged in a post-9/11, post-recession world during an era when conspiracy thinking, New Age spirituality, and online subcultures were colliding in bizarre and often disturbing ways. Destiny took the language of self-help and spirituality, mixed it with conspiracy tropes and a vague anti-capitalist aesthetic, and then buried it all beneath layers of jargon and financial exploitation. Like many of these groups, it promised liberation while quietly building systems of control. What makes Destiny particularly interesting is how it functioned as a microcosm of broader cultural patterns, how fringe spiritualism can merge with far-right talking points, how the language of equality can be warped into something meaningless, and how people seeking healing or purpose can be pulled into exploitive systems that claim to have all the answers. Groups like Desteni don't thrive because their ideas are good, they thrive because they know how to speak to people's disillusionment, repackage familiar self-help tactics as secret knowledge, and frame any criticism as ignorance or resistance from the unenlightened masses. This wasn't just a group with a few odd ideas about aliens and reincarnation, it was a tightly controlled one, built on pseudoscience, riddled with abuse, and constantly shifting its branding to avoid criticism and stay relevant. And despite how absurd some of it might seem in hindsight, it worked for a time. Because if you offer people a worldview that explains everything, gives them a sense of superiority, and promises salvation, a lot of people will buy in, especially when the world feels like it's falling apart.
So that's my story. My name's Kieran, and we'll bring to you the next one. Thanks.
Hey, thanks for watching the video everyone. Before you click off, make sure to follow my socials in the description if you enjoyed. I have Instagram, I even have fucking LinkedIn, you know, pick your poison, let us connect guys, come on. Oh, and I also have a Patreon if you guys want to help out. These videos, you know, they take some time and, you know, it's obviously under no obligation, but if you feel like chucking me a bone, that is there. Also, if you remember Mr. Dapperton from my video on esoteric entity, he has actually created a video game, but something he did was actually add me to the game. You can play as me, so, you know, that is definitely something you might want to check out. And, you know, because he added me, I thought the least I could do was shout him out and tell you guys to check out his side-scroller platform game, Skull Stompers. That is available on Steam for free. I will post the link in the description. Catch you guys later.